Hey, good morning, Saints. Well, last night's video, I didn't really give you the biblical tie-in of this article I was reviewing. I talked about the biblical tie-in and then I didn't do it. I was really tired and there's part of this that was speculative, and I know that's kind of why I was holding back. I was hesitant in my mind. So I'm just going to peanut butter it out there what was really getting me going with this article, besides the fact that there's a potential war being declared. But I'll give you the biblical part and I'll try and give you the speculative part. Okay, so hopefully then you get more clarity as to why I put the video out last night. And for people that didn't see the last video, you probably don't need to. I'm just going to reset the stage here a little bit. So this article came out, Value Walk. It was an article that came from the Russian Defense Ministry, told through the Moscow Times via the Fiscal Times. So, okay, a little bit of uh, re-reporting here. But the key thing is the United States, if it supplies lethal arms to Ukraine, which there's a bill in Congress backed by Obama to do exactly this, Russia will consider it an act of war. And they will respond asymmetrically against Washington or its allies on other fronts. And then down below, they talk about where is it? Here it is. The Russian official requested anonymity, said that Russia can also encourage or support Iran in a fight with Saudi Arabia, pushing up the oil prices, which would save the Russian economy. So, yeah, threat against the U.S., but then a threat also against Saudi Arabia via Iran. And that's the big deal. So the bill's in Congress to do exactly what was being warned against here. And if potentially if the bill goes through and the aid for Ukraine happens, Russia is threatening to back Iran in an attack against Saudi Arabia. And, as it says down below here, if it's an act of war, it will respond against Washington or its allies. And so, there's some threat here to the U.S. as well in this whole deal. Now let's tie this into the Bible because this is what I screwed up yesterday. So Ezekiel 38 and 39, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, land of Magog, the prince of Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal. Oh, you know what? Wrong version. King James here. Son of man, set thy face against Gog, land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. And that's really the trick there. That word Rosh is in debate. It does mean prince or head. It could be used, like a title, or some people think it's a Rosh. It's a historical name that pointed to Russia. So you got this little debate in there. And Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against them and say, Thus saith the Lord God, behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. And I will turn thee back, put hooks in a jaw, and I will bring thee forth and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, and all of them handling swords. Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet. Sorry, Gomer and all of his bands, and house of Togarma of the north quarters, and all of his bands, and many people with thee. And as you guys know, whenever there's a list in the Bible, the first in the list is, kind of the key part, the initiator. And most Bible scholars say Magog points to the Scythians, who are southern Russia. And so we're probably talking about Russia at a minimum, and probably the lower steppes of Russia. The old Soviet Union included Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, and all that, and so it's probably inclusive of that. So the old Soviet Union, if you want to say, is most likely in view here. And then you've got Persia next. So this is the second one, Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya. And Persia up until 1935 or 7, somewhere in there, Persia is Iran, or Iran was named Persia up until then, until the final fall of the last Ottoman Empire ruler. So we've got Iran is next in the list, and then you've got, you know, Northern Africa, if you want to say right here, and Gomer and Togarmah and all that is at least the bounds of Turkey. You know, these are historical people groups, and so they don't fit our boundaries today. It could go as far west as Eastern Europe here. I've heard people do that, and even go east of Turkey. So that's, you know, a little question mark, but it's definitely Turkey. So you've got, how do we got? We've got Russia, potentially the old Soviet Union, with Iran, um, Northern Africa, if you want to say, and then Turkey. Boom. They're coming in and coming against Israel. And there's a great war. Now, in the article, you got Russia and Iran, the two first key players. And so, and there, I guess according to historical account, Russia's never had any alliance with Persia, the old Persia. At times they've even been enemies. And so that not only they are friendly, but now Russia is backing Iran militarily is very significant in light of Bible prophecy. And now we got something really interesting down here. Sheba and Dedan and the merchants of Tarshish and all the young lions thereof shall say unto thee, art thou come to take a spoil? Hast thou gathered thy company to take a prey, to carry away silver, gold, away cattle, goods, and a great spoil? And so there's a group of countries that are in complaint, but they don't appear to be part of the battle. And I know many of you have heard this a million times before, but I'll just say it quick because I didn't do the biblical tie-in in the last video very well, so I don't want to do it again. Tarshish, many think is England, could be Spain, but many think it's England. What the young lions thereof is where the British Empire had gone historically, which would be the U.S., right? Canada. Sorry. And so now these are just complaining here, and the Bible expositors say this is pointing to, if this is England, Tarshish, then it's saying that the U.S. is impotent in this battle. Something must have happened to the U.S. And this is really the only place where conservative Bible scholars see or view the U.S. in Bible prophecy. And then if you think about it, so something happened to us, probably England as well, because they're in this list of just complainers. Now you got Sheba and Dedan also that are in this list of complainers. Well, here's the significant part. Sheba and Dedan points to Saudi Arabia, but it also, I believe, includes Yemen. And this is really key here because Iran just through another Shiite Muslim proxy down in Yemen just toppled the government. And so, you know, boom, there's another player that, you know, Yemen is now in control of Iran through a proxy group, and Saudi Arabia is the one being threatened in this article. And so now we're crossing over into speculation, okay? Why would that be significant? Well, what if Iran, who's now on the southern border of Saudi Arabia and has always been in a threat militarily with Saudi Arabia, what if they come with Russia's backing and take Saudi Arabia? I mean, that's what's implied in this article. If the U.S. Funds militarily lethal weapons to the Ukraine, Russia's response here would be to help Iran attack Saudi Arabia. Well, boom, I see that as fitting the pattern, let's put it that way, of Sheba and Dedan, the merchants of Tarshish with the young lions, being impotent. Again, you'd have Yemen already taken by Iran, and you'd have Sheba, Saudi Arabia, being attacked, according to the article, presumably taken, so they're unable to respond militarily when it comes to the Ezekiel 38 war. So you see where I'm going with that? Now, that is speculative, granted, but wouldn't that be stage setting? Um, and this is why I was hesitant yesterday to get into it, is this is kind of speculative, and you guys know, at least through my videos, I've been saying Psalm 83 is probably first, the nations that border Israel being attacked first. But this is pretty significant, where you see all the major players of the Psalm or of the Ezekiel 38 potentially right now aligning and arming. I think that's pretty significant. I guess we don't have Turkey involved in that article, but you get what I'm saying is you've got Russia in alliance with Iran militarily, which doesn't have historical precedents, and yet it's required for this war to happen. Then you got Sheba and Dedan with representing Yemen and Saudi Arabia, and Yemen's already fell. And it sure appears that Saudi Arabia has to fall, and potentially England or Europe, England and the U.S., which lots of folks are speculating our time for judgment has come. Wow, so that's what I got. Now, just add one more brick on there, and again, extra biblical, but the Shiite Muslims, especially in Iran, viewed the death of King Abdullah as the trigger for their great war that brings about the Mahdi. And so there's just one more brick in terms of their mentality, Iran's mentality, what might be fueling the timing for them to attack Saudi Arabia and to very likely light up war in the Middle East. Well, they think the Mahdi's going to come, and their trigger was supposed to be the death of King Abdullah, and that happened. So, saints, we don't know exactly. All we can do is look at the Bible and go from the Bible out to the news source and say, do we see some of this happen? And so as we get close here, you see the Lord putting the chess pieces together. Now, I would have never guessed that, for instance, there was going to be an ISIS group and all this in the Middle East, and I couldn't have ever have thought about some of the scenarios about how Syria is being split apart by these different groups and all that. I was perfectly content believing that when Morsi came to power in Egypt, that was the last brick required for the Psalm 83 war, and of course that didn't happen. And so, the speculation part is dangerous, because if you hang your hat on that and it doesn't play out exactly that way, of course, you lead people astray. And so I'm just trying to stick with the biblical scenario and point to the pieces that the Lord appears to be putting together here, and it's a lot of them. And so I do feel the timing's close. Now, I do think Psalm 83 is first, and I get that not only from the fact that, in this prophecy, Israel is back in the land, okay, gathered out of many people, and that's happened. And they'll be dwelling safely, and we know that's not the case. And so the logic that Bill Salus, who kind of, if you want to say, popularized Psalm 83 as a current day war, he thinks that this is important, and the fact that they're not dwelling safely. He says the Psalm 83 war needs to come before this Ezekiel 38. I actually get there another way, and you guys know that I get into this quite a bit, but while we're in it, let's do it. In Zephaniah 2, you've got the Psalm 83 players again: Gaza, Ascalon, Ashdod. That's the east coast around the Mediterranean. That's currently mostly Muslim. Okay, and then God's saying He's going to destroy all these places and all. And this appears to be partial list of the players that are in in Psalm 83, and here you have Assyria, which that's the land that ISIS is in, including um, Syria in northern Iraq, I think that is. Nineveh, right? That's Mosul today. That's all whipped up by ISIS right now, and so it's all in there. And then sorry about that. The interesting part for me too is in the Septuagint translation, you actually have a mention here of Damascus, which let's find it again here. Hang on. Here we go in verse 9. Therefore, as I live, saith the Lord of hosts, God of Israel, Moab shall be as Sodom, and the children of Ammon as Gomorrah. And we know that the major city there of Amman, Jordan, is very populated, so this hasn't happened. And Damascus shall be left as a heap of the threshing floor and desolate forever. Again, the Septuagint version, so put a little, kind of gray check mark there. That's not in the Masoretic version of the Bible, but it's very interesting because people try and figure out where does Isaiah 17 fit into the scenario where Damascus is destroyed in a day. To me, if this is not a historical translation problem, it fits in with the Psalm 83 war, which is many people speculate anyways. And the great thing is, you got this verse up here in verse 3. Seek ye the Lord, all you meek of the earth. Do judgment, seek justice, and answer accordingly, that you may be hid in the day of the Lord, in the day of the wrath of the Lord, right? And so it's pointing right at the day of the Lord. And it's pointing just prior to it, right? And being hid in that day, I think that's the rapture. And you guys know I've talked about that quite a bit. So I'm pretty excited because if you had to line this all up, see the rapture, see Psalm 83, you'd see the fulfillment being alluded to here, if you want to say, of Isaiah 17. And then if we go back into King James, Ezekiel 38, you've got Russia in an alliance, now a military alliance with Iran. You've got, Libya's already toppled and it already went to, the Islamic groups. So that's not a shock. And then you got Yemen and Saudi Arabia. Yemen already being toppled and a proxy of Iran. Saudi Arabia being threatened by Russia and Iran. And you've got Bible expositors that say that the U.S. only reference potentially in the Bible is right here. And, if we get destroyed, that would make us impotent, like I say, in this battle, which would fit the scenario. So there, I'm leaving you there. Hopefully that was the biblical tie-in that was missing from last night. I apologize. I was pretty tired and I was worried about doing some of the speculative stuff, but I just see the chess pieces being put together by the Lord. Who knows how the final moves happen here that kicks off these wars, but certainly the major pieces are coming into place. So I'll leave you right there, Saints. Have a blessed rest of the week. Keep watching the news.